Hi everyone, this is Shantae K. Shantizi. Welcome to my analysis on Tuesday, May 26, 2020. I'm here with you today to cover some stuff. It was a kind of a that kind of a day in the news cycle, right? Like I'm gonna get to certain stuff. So here we are. Coronavirus is always going to be the first thing I cover, as always. We are 1.6 million cases, almost 1.7 million cases in, and nearing at 100,000 deaths. We at 99.5 thousand millions of cases. So thousands of cases. So we at 100 million. I won't be surprised I wake up and it's 100 million when I wake up. So that's where we are. Testing, there is no mass testing. The administration plan is basically to states are on their own. It's like the Hunger Games. Every state is competing in terms of testing. So that's just what it is. And this administration that has no game plan. Like there's states, 17 states cases, their cases of COVID spike, while big cities like New York is turning a curve, even though New York City is still on lockdown and every other region in New York is open and is going to be open, but New York City itself is not going to be open, and I don't know when it's going to be open. And you know what? I'm fine with it being shut down right now. The way things are and the way people are not social distancing in these different places, in these videos I'm watching, it's crazy how people are not social distancing. It's remarkable, like remarkable and insane. Cuomo's briefing. So I watched Andrew Cuomo's briefing because, he's my governor. I live in the state of New York. And it was pretty insightful. He said, the cases and intubations and stuff is down. 73 people have died yesterday. That's the lowest. That's the lowest since like the beginning of March. He also said how to reopen. We're going to reopen smart. The New York Stock Exchange was open today for the first time. That's like the only thing that's like kind of like open in the city besides essential like stores or like little restaurants where you could go get your food and go home. And after states, county executives, and even mayors have to worry about how to reopen and how to, reopen smart and monitor the cases and monitor everything. So that's just what it is. Thanks, T. And so like you have to monitor those cases because that's important. Also, the minority communities are taking a hit, as you can see the percentages, high it is. They're going to monitor those cases too. The zip codes that have the most is between 10467, which is where I used to work at in the Gun Hill Road, Wakefield neighborhood. Second is a zip code in Queens. So a lot of Queens and the Bronx cases has been a hot spot, so it's been picking up, which I'm not kind of like surprised in a way, but then I'm not, because most of people that live in the Bronx, most of them are essential workers, and some of them don't live by themselves, and it's not easy to social distance. You can't social distance in the Bronx, especially if you live with more than one person or more than 3 people. How you can social distance and you're an essential worker? More than likely, you're going to get it. You're not going to get all them crazy symptoms, but you're going to get it. Like, either way. So that's what he mostly covered. And he said this economy is not going to bounce back right away, which we all know. 90% of the small businesses in New York State are small business. Small businesses from hair salons, nail salons, little small clothing stores, other beauty supply stores. That's another one. Art stores, all these like essential oil stores. These are stores that are going to get hit hard, and also little small restaurants due to COVID-19. Big stores like Chipotle and Marshalls and TJ Maxx are going to be saved. Some other stores, big major stores, may close down, but their company won't go bankrupt. So the only things those are the only companies I could see being saved. The small businesses are going to really hit the hardest, especially the minority-owned businesses, because in New York State, a lot of the small businesses are owned by minorities. Not too much by white people, but mostly minorities. And it's in the most urban communities of color, such as Harlem, the Bronx, some parts of Brooklyn, especially like Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights and Canarsie, and there's another neighborhood that I'm missing, and even some in Fort Greene. And in Queens, you got some places in Long Island City and Jamaica, Queens, that's going to suffer. They're going to suffer tremendously. So that's where we are. But more on his briefing you can watch. But those are the... And also, he is going to Washington tomorrow. That's the last thing. He's going to Washington tomorrow. Don't know why. I kind of know why, but I just feel like that person in Washington should come here because this is his home state, and he still haven't visited any states that has been the epicenter of this thing. But this is who that's in the White House. That's why it's important to vote. Never sit out in an election. But you can catch more of his briefing there. Now, this whole... So... I talked about the story of Christian Cooper. That's the man who was in Central Park filming. He's actually a biomedical writer. He used to be a comic book editor, and then he now is a biomedical writer. So he writes for the health science. For the health science editor. So he's a bird watcher. So he watches the birds. He watches the birds in Central Park because Central Park is 50 blocks. So of course it's going to be birds, and you're going to be watching the birds. I'm thinking like he stopped up from COVID because the full content of the story wasn't explained yesterday until this morning. So he was actually watching the birds, and he told this woman to not take your dog off the leash. Put your dog back on the leash. Anybody would have said that because, first of all, why would you have your dog off the leash? Some parts of Central Park is not a dog area. There's only like 1 or 2 parts of the park that is a dog area, but the rest of it is not a dog area. And that part of the park, what she said, it looked like in the 70s or 80s. Because it don't look like in the 50s. It don't look like it's in the 60s. It look like it's in the 70s and 80s. Because that's where you see all that extended lawn area. So that is not the dog area. So she was unleashing her dog in a non-dog area where benches are. So he told her in a respectful manner. She came up and took her mask off and shit, and then had her dog come near him, and then went back and just called and falsely said a black man, an African-American man is attacking me, when the guy did. You see the picture of him. He's not even attacking her. I mean, he looks like a vulnerable guy. A very smart, almost 60-year-old man, because he's 57 years old. The man is accomplished, and he's a Harvard grad. And the sad part is, when the video actually went viral, and when I did the story of Karen's, because I'm going to do a small mini-series of Karen's after my live, she got fired from her job. She was a vice president of Franklin Templeton. It's an investment firm. She was fired publicly because the video went viral, and she falsely accused an accomplished Harvard grad biomedical editor of attacking her. This is what's wrong in our society. And speaking of what's wrong with our society, we're back to this police brutality bullshit. I can't breathe. This man was 25 years old. George Floyd of Minneapolis, Minnesota. A cop kneeled on his back. Not on his back, on his neck. on his neck, and the man said he couldn't breathe, and he persisted and still persisted to have his goddamn knee on his neck. The man arrived a few minutes after the hospital. He was dead in a few minutes. Dead on arrival. Those men got fired from their jobs. They got fired. That's great. What's next? Prosecuted. Jail time. Life sentence maybe. Like, I am so sick of stories like this, and the guy that was accused that was about to be killed. Like, I'm so tired. Like, I'm just so tired of this. It reminds me of Eric Gardner back in 2014. I Can't Breathe in the way that shit was handled under Mayor de Blasio. Sean Bell under Michael Bloomberg. And Amadou Diallo under Rudy Giuliani. Like, this here, like, I'm so sick of it. Like, I am so sick of it. And I'm not even going to name the other, like, Philando Castro and everything. But I'm naming the three because those happened in my lifetime as a New Yorker. That happened 3 times in New York. 1997, 2006, 2014. Under 3 different mayors. 2 Republican, 1 Democrat. Like, when is this going to end? I'm like that tired. This is making me have a different perception, and I shouldn't have, because make me have a perception about police. Always did. And I know some guys I know that are policemen. Make me someone have a different perception of 40-year-old white women, and I really don't. But this is like, honestly, like, it's sickening. And now, like, and I can't say Donald Trump, brought racism in, but he sure enough emboldened these motherfuckers to say what the fuck they gotta say out of their mouth and think that shit is okay. It is 2020. It is the 21st century. No one's not taking that bullshit no more. I can tell you that right now. Like, no one's not taking it anymore. Seriously. Like, this here, like, people are not taking it anymore. It's time that we hold these people accountable. Like, we got to hold them accountable and hold them to their word that they're not going to do something like this no more. No more. They're not going to do this no more. Like, we got to hold them accountable, hold them to the feet, hold the city officials, elected officials to their feet, and say, like, enough is enough. Because justice will be served one way or another. It's going to get served. And we got to keep their feet and keep their neck on it. And when there's more development reports, I will bring them to you. I promise. I'll bring you piece by piece. I won't bring you the full extent, but I'll bring you piece by piece of stuff that I know. So that's what I will do. Just got worked up. The politics of it. Speaking of the emboldened man in chief, there was a guy of a former intern who said that Trump's Twitter should be suspended, which it should be suspended. But why does it take for a man, and I don't want to say a man whose wife worked for someone else, who is writing a letter to Twitter to Jack Dorsey saying the account should be suspended? My thing is, like, I understand his grief, I understand his pain, and there's no shade to the guy, Timothy. But I just feel like 6 months ago, Kamala Harris, the former presidential candidate and a sitting U.S. senator, said Trump's account should be suspended. She said that because he attacks people, he says false claims, and he's been doing this for the last forever ago, before he was an elected official. And now that he's an elected official, he's just going off the cuff. And you would have thought the Mueller report and the impeachment would teach him a lesson, like Susan Collins said. No, it's not teaching him a lesson. He's just doing All kinds of craziness and saying all kinds of lies and everything. And now there's labeled 2 fact checks of his tweets. His account should be suspended, period. Don't care about the First Amendment rights. It needs to be suspended. You want to suspend other people's accounts, but they're not sending out threats like this man is. This man is sending out threats off the rooftop and lies. And intimidation and intimidating people and witness intimidation like he did during the impeachment hearings back in September. So that's why it's always important to listen to black women. Because black women, we know what we're talking about. Especially when it comes to pandemics, recessions, and crap like this. And people like this are why he should never been in office. And speaking his administration, Kayleigh McEnany, I remember when I told you about who Kayleigh McEnany is, besides the fact that she's his press secretary now, she's a former CNN commentator who was a Trump supporter. She said that she condemned Trump in the beginning, but now she supported him when she was before the election, the actual election, around the time of the general election. So she says a whole bunch of lies. Where's her press thing at? Oh, it's in the back of my notes. You got to take notes in order to know what you're talking about and watch stuff. So Kayleigh McEnany was asked about Trump reopening the economy. She said people are social distancing after the videos went viral in like Missouri and Ocean City, Maryland. And then she said states are under 10%. Mortality rate is down. 17 states they've seen a spike in their cases. So how is cases under 10%? Dr. Birx is just making stuff up because they know if it was Anthony Fauci would tell the truth. That's why they don't have him at these briefings. And that's why they don't have him presenting stuff, because he will call them out and denounce their crap. And then she was also asked about Biden emerging from his basement. And she said, Biden, it's finally time he emerged out of his basement, and it's peculiar. She think he's crazy that he wears a mask in public but don't wear a mask in his basement. First of all, it's his house. It's his basement. Only him and his wife live there. He don't have his children living there because they all grown. They got kids. Okay? His grandkids are not even by him. He don't even really see them. So how is it peculiar that he has a mask on in public? He's supposed to. If he's in a crowd of people, the man is almost 80 years old. He should have on a mask. That's the point of having on a mask in public. When you in the vicinity of your home and it's just you and your wife is not near you, you can have your mask off. And either way, him and his wife sleep in the same damn bed. They're married. They've been married forever. Of course, he's not going to wear his mask on his wife, especially in their house. If they're in public together, that's different. Because they're in public together wearing a mask. And they're in a crowd. That's what you're supposed to do. Duh. So this whole, oh God. And then she just went on to say a lot of stuff. And then, asked about the IG resigning. 4 IGs have been either fired or have resigned within the last 6 weeks. That's not good, because they oversee the government spending and the government money and make sure taxpayers get their money. They investigate people. IG for the State Department has been fired because they was investigating Pompeo and his dirty dealings and using state money, the state budget's money, to do his own campaigning for a potential run as a senator of Kansas. The Secretary of Transportation, her IG was fired because they was investigating her dealings for Kentucky for her husband's reelection, which her husband is the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. So it's a lot of corruption. So they are the most swampiest people. And so she said it's the president's legal and executive authority to appoint IGs. IGs are independent. They're not political pawns. They're independent people. That means that they independently have the obligation of the American people to investigate people. That's what they do. They're lawyers. They're like one of the cops. Also, she was asked about, the RNC wants to hold a convention, which I'm like, it's the coronavirus. And they said, well, Trump wants to have the place to take place. He said that in case of the spikes. And then she said something about McEnany said she doesn't want to engage in the hypotheticals. First of all, we're almost 1.7 million cases. We are 100,000, near 100,000 deaths. Why would you want to have the RNC convention? The Democrats are not having their convention. They're going to do maybe a virtual convention. She should do a virtual convention, because why would you want to do that? So, because you guys don't believe in science? Like, this is the most non-science driven administration I ever seen. I always thought that Republicans were not that science enthused, because they're really not. But this is just bizarre. It's completely bizarre. Like, you're telling people to take off their masks, liberate, protest their stay-at-home orders, that their governors are trying to stay their life, whether they're Democrat or Republican governors, trying to save their life, trying to follow the science and follow the experts around them, and you telling them to do this and do that and do this and do that. It's like mixed messaging. And then you're telling governors to open up their churches, and if they don't on Sunday, you're going to override the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment actually gives governors the right to act as executive branch in their state. And our governor in New York, I don't know about other governors, but our governor in New York is opening by regions, and you still got to social distance. It's only on phase 1. He's actually following the numbers and the downtrends and the down curves. That's why he's asking the county executives to monitor every day and open phase 1. So this administration, and she goes on and on spewing, trying to cover up for Trump, because Trump was asked about, his Twitter account and these lies. And then, she pivots back to, Joe Skybauer, which is the guy from Morning Joe, about him saying lies, which actually is true, about hydroxychloroquine. People could die from it. Actually, people can, because there's people that studies that say people that did die from hydroxychloroquine, especially if they're not suffering from lupus or malaria. It's not to treat COVID-19. It's not. We all know that. Any smart person will know that, because I have people that I know that have lupus and needs that medicine in order to stay alive, because it's an autoimmune disease. It's really, really tough. Sometimes they have days where they feel weak and that they can't walk, and then they can't do this and they can't do that. So Joe Skybauer was actually telling the truth about that. And she pivots to Mika accusing Trump for the 100,000 lives. I mean, he is the leader of the free world. He's responsible. He's not responsible of how COVID-19 started, but he's sure enough responsible of how he's managing it, and it's not good. And keep in mind, President Obama and Joe Biden, when he was the vice president, managed H1N1, which was the swine flu back in 2009, and then it was the Ebola crisis 5 years later. And honestly, it didn't spread nationwide. It didn't. There was some deaths, but it was not like this. Not at all. And they actually believe in science. And that's how the pandemic, after the Ebola crisis, the pandemic response team was created under the National Security Council. And now was stripped away in 2018 once Trump came in. This administration cut so many things that could have helped us. And there was another article saying the administration cut more funding from this back in 2017 that could have helped us now. So we are in a bind, and there's still no national strategy on how people are being tested or how people to be treated. Talking about there's going to be a vaccine towards the end of this year. I highly doubt it. The way this administration is moving their feet, there's still the Defense Protection Act, which is the DPA, is still not fully invoked. People are still needing PPE. The second wave of this is supposed to be coming. We're around flu season. You don't know if you have the cold, the flu, or coronavirus. So these things here, these are uncertain times. And in uncertain times, things are traditional. They don't know they're going to reopen school for the fall, because kids can easily pick up germs, and they do, and they give it to their parents and their grandparents, and that's how you get a cold. I used to work with kids, so I used to get a cold from the kids. So that's how. And remote learning may be extended to probably until there's a vaccine, which I don't blame them. I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I would keep their butt home too. My mother is crazy. If growing up we were sick, we stayed home. If there was a pandemic, my mother would never let us go outside. Even if it's nice outside, we would be in the house. Yep. But with more of Katie McEnany's ridiculousness, y'all can look it up. Because she just ridiculous in all frontiers. Now with these whole, the Karens again. God. I think we also have black Karens too. Instead of white Karens. Candace Owens. She's another separate video I'm going to do after this. Why she has a platform? Like, honestly, to tell you the truth, like, I just feel like she spews nonsense. She's supposed to be the right-winged black conservative darling. I'm not a Republican, but I've seen black Republicans on TV, and Carisha, and she's not it. There's Tara Setmeyer, who's on CNN regularly. Sophia A. Nelson, who's a conservative who left the Republican Party. You have Shamichael Singleton, who's a Republican strategist. Who else? That's a black Republican. No, a Spanish Republican got Ana Navarro. Those are the Republicans that are black or Hispanic that I respect. And they're not Trump supporters. They're traditional Republicans. Oh, Michael Steele is another one. He's another one. They're traditional Republicans. Traditional Republicans, and are the party of the beliefs of Lincoln and maybe some of Reagan. Reagan wasn't all that perfect either. But like I said, they are the party of Lincoln. So when Trump was nominated in 2016 for the Republican ticket, they were like, no. Some of them voted for Hillary, and some of them wrote in a candidate. But this is where we are. But I'm just making a point that Candace Owens says a lot of stupid stuff. She had a live on Twitter, a video talking about, why people making a big deal about Jimmy Fallon's blackface when he apologized for it in a tweet, which, because it was wrong. Anybody doing a blackface, white or even black, is a minstrel show, and it's wrong. Because those things were actually offensive and hurtful back in the day. And it showed like black people eating watermelons and fried chicken. Those things are racist. And they're racist. No matter if you try to be a black person for Halloween, it's racist. It's completely racist. That's me painting my face on being a white person. It's racist as hell. Completely racist. And yes, it may be the cancel culture, but it's a cancel culture of racism. And race is not talked about. It's always swept under the rug, but it needs to be talked about. And we could criticize folks like Joe Biden, who's the the presidential presumptive nominee. We're going to criticize Jimmy Fallon, and we're going to criticize Amy Cooper. We're going to criticize them. And I'm sure enough, I don't mind criticizing Candace and Brandon Tatum, because I think they're the most idiotic, dumb black conservatives I ever saw in my life. And I don't agree with conservatives a lot, but there's conservatives that are much better than those two. So, yes, she's a Carisha Jr. She's a Carisha. Yeah. So, I talked about those and everything. So, here's my thought about this whole thing. We're in some strange times. And in these strange times, it's like we have to be vigilant. We have to stay woke, but also still live our lives, but safely and differently. Don't be in crowds. People say don't be on crowds no more than 10. I said just don't really be in crowds at all unless it's your family. Unless it's your small, intermediate family. I'm not around my parents because, first of all, they're in the Bronx. I'd rather stay away from my parents because I don't want to infect them. I'll stay away from my sisters because both of them are immunocompromised, especially my eldest sister, who I'm staying away from. because she's immunocompromised. Even though she goes to work every day, but she's an essential worker, but she's still immunocompromised. I stay the hell away from her. Just wear your mask, wear your gloves, wash your hands. That's what you have to do. Wash your hands. It's important because, this is an airborne thing. People saying you getting it from dirty surfaces, even though there's other people that touch the surfaces. That's where the transmission comes from. And it's also from droplets. That's why they ask you to wear your mask. The CDC actually wear your mask. And if you don't have like an actual hospital mask, because they're very hard to find and some of them people are price gouging, you call your AG, wherever state you live in. Wear like a bandana or scarf around your thing. If some of you are creative knitters and sewers, knit your mask. Knit your mask even for your kids, because kids are getting the Wasaki virus. Because there was some kids out here I didn't see with no mask. I'm like, but the parents got on the mask. I'm like, what? How does that happen? You protect your kids, protect your cub too. From people. Kids catch stuff. Duh. So, like, I'm saying, like, please wear your mask. Wear your gloves. Social distance if you have to. If you got to go to the store, go to the store. Wear your mask. Because now these stores, they want you to wear your mask. If you have to go get your medicine, go get your medicine. If you want to go for a walk, go for a walk. Wear your mask. If you're going to run, wear your mask. Because you can work out outside. But please, 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 please be safe. Okay? And I'm going to end this right here because I'm not going to prolong because it's 30 minutes. I'm 32 minutes in. But just take care of yourself and take care of each other. Be blessed.